So this week we are going to cover testing and debugging, and a lot of these procedures you have done in other classes. So it's going to be a bit of a review. The only thing that may be a little newer is a trace. And so you are going to read through chapter 5 and go through the lecture demo. There are a couple of applications that you will be downloading and adding breakpoints and trace points to, and they have errors in them that you will have to fix. The first application is from the textbook authors, so you can kind of read about how to test things on multiple browsers, how to do the breakpoints, how to proceed forward when you hit a breakpoint. And then kind of the cool thing in Visual Studio is that you can actually see the values. So if you set a breakpoint and you pause, there's like this little window that shows up. Let me see if I got a picture of it. Kind of a little comment window that pops up and you can see what the values are. Um, and for some reason in the past, some students didn't have that, but you can certainly see those values under locals. So there's a couple different ways to see the values, um, and it is kind of neat. So you're going to basically be reviewing how to do all of that. You're going to use the intermediate window, which I don't know if you've ever done that. Um, Basically, it lets you kind of query while the project is running, because you've set a breakpoint. You can query, what data it's currently working on. And this is pretty valuable for debugging, especially, because if you're doing calculations or anything like that, you may not know what the computer is actually storing and processing, and this lets you get at that data. Okay, so being able to use that intermediate window is nice, and you can query anything that is in your models. Okay, and so this kind of shows you how to do that. So we talk about it, and then we actually go through it and try it. And here's that little window that I was talking about. If you point, you can actually click and get this drop down, and it shows you exactly what it's been working on, or it's currently looking at, which is kind of cool. However, some of the students, it didn't work. So there is like a little workaround. There's more than one place where you can see those values. Okay, so I show you both methods of looking at the values. And there is an error that we are going to be fixing. Then we get into exception errors. And there's really two ways that those are displayed. And it depends on how you run the application, whether you run it with debugging or without debugging. Okay, so when you run the app and you see something like this, it's a browser exception. There is a way for you to see the exception in Visual Studio instead of the browser. Okay, and that's kind of what we cover. Now, I will tell you what is really, really weird, is that I saw the browser error regardless of how I ran the app, whether I ran it with or without debugging, it didn't matter. Okay, and so in order to see the little error in the program itself instead of on the browser, I actually had to go through these steps. And once I went through these steps, then it worked. Okay, I could run by pressing F5, And instead of seeing the error in the browser, I actually saw it in my code. Okay, so those steps are there for you if you need to do the reset like I did. Okay, so this is just different ways of um, finding out what your program is processing. Okay, and then we also add trace points. Trace points you can get to through breakpoint settings. So if you point at your breakpoint, you'll see it says settings are disabled. If you go into settings under action, you can actually set trace points. And it's just a way to see where your code is processing, basically, um, and what it's processing. And so I always do asterisks around it so I can see it because this displays in your output window, and the output window has a ton of code in it. And it's actually really hard to find your trace point message in the middle of all that code. Okay, so I do this to set it apart. But we'll be talking about how to do those trace points, which basically kind of lets you follow logic in your program. You can add trace points to indicate what a value in a view bag is, or, if you're in the controller, what a value in an ID is. And you can also indicate, what action method you're in. And then in your views, you can indicate, what processing is occurring, and just kind of helps you follow the flow of the program. Then on your own, you're going to download this, and there is an exception error that you're going to have to fix. And then I'm also going to want you to add a trace point. Okay, so just a little practice on your own. Okay, and I do want you to turn these in because there is an exception error that you have to fix. For the trace points, leave those in. Don't take them out. And then I should be able to see them. And if I can't, that's fine. But I think I should. I think those should stay. Okay, so anyway, that is the assignment. It's really pretty short. So in addition to the assignment for this week, we do have a little discussion exercise. And I want you, now we've talked about the term project, so I kind of want you to share with the class what you are thinking of doing. Okay, and so I have included some articles for you to take a look at because a lot of you kind of have ideas. Some of you will maybe use the app that you developed back in chapter 3. But I'd like you to look at these articles, okay, and then answer these questions. What's your app going to be called? Who's the audience? What's the purpose? How are you handling the branding? What's your color scheme? And why did you choose those colors? And based on the homepage article, what are your ideas for a homepage that will keep viewers at your site? Because if your homepage is boring or if it's confusing, they will leave. So how are you going to keep them at your site? And then I want you to read your classmates' posts and reply. I'm going to change this because our class is small. You only have to reply to 2 of them. Okay. So even though you're indicating what you're going to do here, it is okay to change your mind about the colors and the branding. So it's like nothing is set in stone. Basically, you're just telling people what you're thinking about. Okay? And so I've got a couple examples of what students have done in the past for you to look at. And then the last thing we have this week is the unit test. And for this one, it's randomly drawing questions from a question bank. And you can take this test an unlimited number of times. It's just that you're probably not going to get the exact same questions every time. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're taking the test. It is open book and open note. Okay, and then because we have this little discussion on design, I did include this little ebook I picked up a couple of years ago, Web Design for Developers, if you are interested in it. Okay, so that is what we're working on this week, and let me know if you run into problems or have questions.